Good evening. I'm Catherine Nero. In 3 weeks, voters will elect Cincinnati's next mayor. The candidates, John Cranley and Roxanne Qualls. And tonight, the two will debate the issues important to you live in the 9 on Your Side studio. The Democracy 2013 Cincinnati Mayoral Debate is presented in partnership with the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber, the Cincinnati Association, and the Cincinnati League of Women Voters. The mayoral candidates are two veteran Cincinnati political figures. Roxanne Qualls grew up in Erlanger, attended Thomas More College and the University of Cincinnati, earning a master's degree in public administration at Harvard. She was first elected to Cincinnati City Council in 1991, served 3 terms as mayor from 93 to 1999, and returned to council in 2007. Prior to serving in elected office, Qualls served as the director of the Cincinnati Office of Ohio Citizen Action, executive director of Women Helping Women, and the director of the Northern Kentucky Rape Crisis Center. John Cranley grew up in Price Hill and has earned degrees from John Carroll University, Harvard Law School, and Harvard Divinity School. He served on Cincinnati City Council from 2000 to 2009. Cranley is a co-founder and former director of the Ohio Innocence Project at the University of Cincinnati College of Law. He also developed the Incline District in East Price Hill and served as a lead negotiator for the collaborative agreement. Cranley serves on the boards of the Free Store Food Bank, Mercy Hospital Foundation, and the Jesuit Spiritual Center. We now welcome Roxanne Qualls and John Cranley. Now they're already behind their podiums. You see there, we know in previous debates, this is the point you hear applause. There's no audience tonight because we're here in our studio, so we wanted to explain that first off. Tonight's debate will include questions from a knowledgeable panel. All 3 members are very familiar with the challenges facing Cincinnati and city politics. They include Tom McKee, WCPO multimedia journalist specializing in government, business, and education issues, Kevin Osborne, WCPO politics and government reporter, and Andrea Ladott Blackman, Director of Business Development at the Cincinnati Herald. Now, after each question tonight, there will be 60 seconds for a candidate response, 90 seconds for a rebuttal, and then 30 seconds for a rebuttal response. Each candidate will have a 90-second closing statement as well. First, though, opening statements. A coin toss determined the order in which the candidates will speak. Ms. Qualls won the coin toss, chose to go first, and so Ms. Qualls, you now have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Like you, I love Cincinnati. I started my career as the director of 2 crisis centers that served women and children who were victims of sexual assault and domestic violence, and later worked as a community organizer with residents trying to protect their families and neighborhoods from pollution and to protect their families' health. When I was mayor, I led the effort that put in place the master plan and the basic infrastructure for what is now the Banks and Smale Riverfront Park. We cut Fort Washington Way in half. We reconnected downtown to the riverfront. We lobbied the state for TIF districts that have made so much of the investment possible that we see. And we built 2 new stadiums that kept our major league ball teams in town. We accomplished many things that some people said would never work, we couldn't afford. Some even tried to stop the progress through the ballot box. And yet now it is hard to find almost anyone that would say that they were opposed to the projects that we celebrate today. Since returning to council in 2007, I have focused my efforts on helping neighborhoods revitalize by investing in things that attract residents, jobs, and businesses. And we're seeing success. Avondale, we're going to invest $20 million in the I-71 interchange and create 7,000 jobs. Walnut Hills, a year ago we turned McMillan 2-way, and just this past Saturday 6,000 people were in that neighborhood celebrating. We've invested in East Price Hill. Just recently we invested $2.5 million to support a new theater and $3 million to support new streetscaping on a street in Price Hill that will become a new focal point for business and retail for the East Price Hill community. But we must do more and better, and that is why I'm running for mayor. Because I have a bold vision of a growing Cincinnati where our children want to stay and other people's children want to come, because we have a strong economy, great neighborhoods, an inclusive community, strong schools, and also responsible government. Thank you.
Ms. Qualls, thank you. And now, Mr. Cranley, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you so much. I love Cincinnati, and my wife Dina and I are raising our son Joseph here because we want Cincinnati to be even greater than the one that we grew up in. And Cincinnati has got so much to offer, and I believe in Cincinnati's future. On City Council, I led the bipartisan effort to revitalize Fountain Square, put the policies in place that allowed the Banks project to get actually built, and the renovation of Over the Rhine. And in a bipartisan manner, we invested in neighborhoods and put more cops and firefighters on the street. That was the bipartisan coalition that got things done. And as good as our progress has been, we're not getting better fast enough. And we have some serious obstacles to our progress. The streetcar, which we cannot afford. The parking meter privatization, which will hurt our neighborhoods and all the momentum that neighborhood business districts have by aggressive enforcement and stealing value from the future and then papering over deficits, and neighborhoods that have been neglected for far too long. On all of these big issues, my opponent and I have clear differences. She wants to raise property taxes to pay for streetcars. She wants to privatize your parking meters. I believe that I have the right balance of experience. In the private sector, I started the Incline Village project in East Price Hill, revitalizing that great historic neighborhood that I grew up in. In the nonprofit sector, I created and founded the Ohio Innocence Project, which through DNA technology has exonerated 16 people over the last 10 years. And it certainly gives me a great deal of compassion for the people who have been put away improperly. And as I've mentioned already, I've served on city council for 8 years. So I have the experience in the private sector, the public sector, and the nonprofit sector. And I know the difference between good investments, investing in safety and basic services, and police and fire, and jobs and job training, and bad investments, streetcars, and parking deals that we just can't afford.
Mr. Cranley, thank you. We now go with our first question from our panel. We begin with WCPO multimedia journalist Tom McKee, and Ms. Qualls will answer first.
Vice Mayor Qualls, Mr. Cranley, good evening. First question would be, give me your vision of what Cincinnati should look like after 4 years of you in office, either one of you.
And Ms. Qualls, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. My vision of Cincinnati after 4 years of office is a Cincinnati in which our 52 neighborhoods are thriving, and they're thriving because the people in our community are actually working at the jobs that are being created or retained based upon the investments that we are making. It's a place of opportunity for young people who are arriving healthy to school because of the school-based health clinics that we're expanding throughout the city of Cincinnati in cooperation with CPS, and they're also arriving ready to learn because of high-quality early learning being provided to all the children of families who reside in the city of Cincinnati. It's a place where young people are not choosing to take to the streets and take up guns, but are actually staying in school because they see a pathway to a career that can support themselves and their families.
And Mr. Cranley, 90 seconds to respond.
I think the greatest measure of success will be if we're growing jobs and we're growing people back to our city. And I believe we got to start with what has been neglected. The historic African-American neighborhoods up the Reading Road corridor and the west side, deeply neglected under the current leadership. We will reinvest in basic services, police and fire, and reduce the violence and the crime, and we'll clean up the blight and pave the roads again. But we'll also invest in jobs and job training for those who have been left out by the worst economy in 70 years. I've pledged to reduce the poverty rate by 5% in my first term. In addition, we're going to grow and expand an African-American middle class by really taking on the Atlanta model, which has grown the biggest African-American middle class in the country. I will lead on these issues because it's important for our progress to benefit everyone, not just a few. And we'll get our financial house in order. We can't afford streetcars, and we can't privatize our parking meters when we can't even balance our budget under my opponent's leadership. We currently are not having a structurally balanced budget. And when you're in a hole, the first thing you got to do is stop digging. So we're going to cancel the streetcar project and use the money that would be used for the operational deficits that go on forever on that project to help balance our budget. And we will finish the things that we're proud of: the Riverfront Park, the Over the Rhine revitalization, I-71 Martin Luther King, to make sure the momentum we have downtown keeps going.